Coming up on Tech News today, Google gets sued by SkyHook. Not the basketball one, the GPS-ish like one. Also, Android's eating up monster shares of market share. But are they really? We'll explain why this is a little bit weird. And pigeons beat broadband. Again, we have the results.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Thursday, September 16th, 2010. Tech News Today is brought to you by Slingbox. Watch your favorite TV shows when you're away from home with Slingbox. Check out Slingbox at a Best Buy near you or visit slingbox.com/twit. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Becky Worley.
Behind the board's our excellent producer, Erik Lanigan.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Becky. How are you guys?
We're doing good. Also joining us is Mr. Nate Lanxon, editor of Wired.co.uk.
That would be me.
Welcome to the colonies, Mr. Lanxon.
It's good. It's good. You know, this is the first time I've been in this room, actually. It's a lot nicer than doing it over Skype.
Yeah, well, I say welcome to the colonies not as some sort of American-British joke, but I mean the colonies of the Bay Area, Petaluma. This is your first time. You've been to San Francisco a few times, but it's your first time coming north here.
Yeah, it is. I've seen a lot of really weird-looking churches on the way here.
Yeah.
Like, I actually thought it was a religious county, like, on the way here.
Nah,
but
that's just U.S. That's just the U.S.
I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, you would be in for a real shocker if you went inland. I mean, come on, man. This is still the West Coast.
Unless you take him to Austin next.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to.
All right. Well, no, it's very nice. You came up for the IE9 announcement, I know. Impressed?
It's a browser.
Yeah, me too. It's a good browser.
It is a good browser.
And a good excuse to take a trip from London to San Francisco.
It is. But you know what impressed me a lot is the new version of Bing. But we'll come to that. Actually, we're not going to come to that. It's quite cool.
That's a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
You'll never get the follow-up. Because we do want to talk about Google being sued by SkyHook. SkyHook is the company that paved the way for finding your location via Wi-Fi. So they triangulate off of Wi-Fi hotspots and figure out where you are so that you don't need GPS. iPhone used to use the SkyHook technology. They now use their own. And SkyHook Wireless is suing Google for interfering with its business and patent infringement. So two different things going on here. Patent infringement for Google developing their own version of what SkyHook does, and interfering with its business because they say that Motorola tried to put out an Android phone that had Google's version of SkyHook, not version, but Google's imitation of SkyHook on it. Motorola tried to put an Android phone that had SkyHook on it, and Google said you can't do that.
Well, they didn't exactly say you can't do that. They said it didn't pass compliance, and they made it really hard for SkyHook to pass compliance. It didn't help them at all. And in a supposedly open environment, this seemed very fishy to SkyHook. And remember, this company's been doing sort of the Wi-Fi aggregation of data for this triangulation since 2003. They have over 70% of the country mapped, they say. And they have a big business that it would seriously debilitate them if Google prevented them from being on the Android platform now, especially that iOS has gone its own proprietary route.
But isn't Android an open source platform? How can Google stop Motorola, he asks rhetorically, from doing whatever they want?
Well, don't all the devices have to actually pass some kind of a certification, or like devices that go into Android actually have to be approved by Android or by Google? So
that's how they slip this in, is they say, well, this SkyHook isn't compatible with Android, so we're not going to certify this unless you replace it.
Well, you have to comply with certain rules. So they have like a list of compliancy requirements, and if you don't comply with them, then I don't know, maybe you can't use Android on your device.
Well, you have to be able to use Android. It's open source. I can go compile it myself, put it on wherever I want. So I think if I'm reading this right, you can't put the Google logo on your device. You can't bill it as a Google phone. You can't use the Google apps, which are proprietary. The Google apps that are within Android, like the Marketplace, for instance, are not open sourced. So you have to get approval. So I think what happens is you can go and put Android on your device all day long, open source, but if you don't get Google's approval, there's lots of things you can't add to it, including the Google logo that gives you a little punch, like, hey, it's an Android Google phone.
Yeah, no, isn't this, there's two different types of Android phones. There's ones that Google approves, and you'll say, this is a Google, powered by Google phone, and then there's other kinds that aren't, and I don't know if they're the ones you can mess with, or if they're the ones that have been messed with.
Or if it's just down to those apps, like the Marketplace, for instance, that you have to pass the compliance to get. Anyway, SkyHook says, that's all crap. They're ruining our business.
And they have a real reason to be as aggressive as possible, because if Android and Apple don't use their product, they basically don't have a business anymore. So, I mean, it seems in some senses that I bet in the backroom dealings they were looking for acquisition from a Google or from a Apple. But at this point, they have to be aggressive if they want to even stay in business.
And Google wants them to use their own technology, not just because they're evil, because they're not, it says so in their mission statement, but also because that's how they make more money, is having geo-targeted ads, and they want to use their own data that they have provided in their piece of technology that SkyHook may not play as well with because they're not using SkyHook anymore. So they lose out on some potential ad revenue there. I think that's the big hook for Google here.
In the chat room, they also say that actually Kareem Abdul-Jabbar owns SkyHook.
That would be Lou Alcindor.
Right.
Later known as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
If we're going to really talk about patent and ownership of things. So I just wanted to share that.
Well, meanwhile, Android is doing well in the marketplace. New numbers from ComScore are out. For the past 3 months, July versus April period, for the past 3 months, May, June, July, right? April through July? July versus April. This is written weird. I should just learn to think instead of reading things. So the past 3 months, ComScore numbers are out. And then compared to the 3 months before that, everybody lost market share except for Google. Android gained 5%.
Yeah, but the thing is, the iPhone, everyone knew that iPhone 4 was coming, so all the Gizmodo stuff. So, you wouldn't go out and buy a phone. Why would you go and buy an iPhone when you knew a new one was coming out?
Right, well, that explains Apple. Apple went down 1.3%. So you can say, like, well, for April and May here, nobody was buying an iPhone because you knew iPhone 4 was coming at the end of June. And this doesn't include a whole lot of iPhone 4 sales because you had that first huge sellout, and then it was hard to get an iPhone for the rest of July.
But what about BlackBerry? BlackBerry was down almost 2%, 1.8%, and they didn't have anything fantastic rumored on the horizon. You couldn't say that the torch was really holding people back.
Well, they also, that's the thing. They didn't have anything fantastic. I think that's both the reason for and against there a little bit. Microsoft was down the worst, 2.2%. And that would be because everybody knows Windows Phone 7 is coming in the fall, so Windows Mobile is not going to sell as well.
But interestingly, no change to Palm.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, no change.
0 plus 0 is 0.
Yep.
And if you consider, if you consider that the market is widening, right? There's more smartphones sold in this 3 month period than the 3 month period before it. Palm sales had to rise just to maintain 0%.
Another facet of this market share thing that's really come to light and will shed some bearing on the next quarter is Best Buy's CEO came out and said that the iPad in Best Buy stores is destroying netbook sales. The netbook sales are off by 50% since the iPad came out. That seems like a bigger game changer in upsetting sort of a hardware direction than this with regard to Android on these specific numbers. Agreed?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think these numbers are of interest. They're significant enough to pay attention to, but I think we've explained it, right? Android had all the good phones in this 3 month period. iPhone 4 didn't come till the end of it. So it'd be interesting to see what our next quarter looks like. Whereas netbook sales, they're in the toilet. There's no two ways of arguing about that. And pretty much the only thing you can point to is the iPad for now. That's why everybody's scrambling to do tablets. That's why we're going to see Samsung's Galaxy Tab coming out on all the major carriers.
Yeah, but I've always had reservations about netbooks because typing on a netbook, I mean, it's kind of about as comfy as having your fingers stamped on. And whereas the iPad, I can actually type at full speed on that thing.
Can you really?
Yeah, I really can.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can type fairly fast, definitely faster than a phone.
I never said I don't make mistakes.
Yeah?
I just that I can type. My fingers physically will tap those keys.
Wow.
I live and die off that iPad physical keyboard dock. I take that thing everywhere with me, and it's better than a netbook to type that way, and you have the functionality to just rip it off and take it when you need it.
Well, whatever happens, we're going to have different smartphone numbers by the end of this year because not only will we have iPhone in full throttle. But we'll also have Windows Phone 7. Microsoft announced the release of the final dev tools, as was expected today. They also made a big deal about the apps. Netflix, Twitter, OpenTable, Flickster, Travelocity have all confirmed plans for their Windows Phone 7 apps. And they all should be available by the holiday season. So it's not about the number of apps, as we've discussed before. It's about which apps are in the store and whether they're the apps that people want to use. These are some big names.
It's hard to know if the actual apps themselves drive purchasing decisions, though. I mean, the fact that they have apps, the fact that they have some big names on the table, if you will, that's a good thing. But I don't think it's, oh, God, I really love Netflix, so, yeah, I'll get a Windows Phone 7.
Yeah, I think it's more of a, if I was on the fence and they didn't have a Twitter app, that might keep me from changing my mind. You know what I mean? Like if you're into Windows Phone 7, the fact that it doesn't have the app might not matter to you
to begin with.
But if you're trying to change somebody's mind and say, "Hey, look at Windows Phone 7, change your operating system, come to us." People's questions are going to be like, well, I'm really into these apps that I use on my current phone, on my Android phone. Am I going to be able to get that same stuff on Windows Phone 7?
Yeah, the answer is probably no, not at first anyway. But I mean, the thing for me for Windows Phone 7 is the Xbox stuff. I mean, I have an iPhone, but I could see myself possibly getting a Windows Phone 7 if it was just, prepay or something like that, just so I can use the Xbox features. I mean, I'm addicted to my Xbox, so anything that lets me take that with me is going to be a good thing.
Well, you already carry 2 phones, right?
I do.
So you carry a third?
I might have to get rid of my BlackBerry.
Yeah. Well, I'm not trying to. I'm just saying you may not be representative sample.
Oh, no.
Maybe of our audience you are. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I think the general audience is going to make their decision much more by carrier than by apps or by, that sort of Xbox functionality. And big news today is Verizon saying, hey, not selling Windows Phone 7 until 2011. That's going to be a significant impact on its distribution.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people are suspecting that's Verizon being still mad about the Microsoft Kin that was a failed experiment and was pulled very quickly. So that's going to hurt, but it's not devastating. I mean, look at Apple. They're doing fine on 1 carrier. Microsoft's going to be on 3 or more. Yeah,
but they, some of the estimates are that they could sell 3 times as many phones if they opened up the U.S. carriers, or they had Docomo, or, some of the China carriers, or Vodafone, Vodacom, sorry. I think that would be a big difference for them, not to mention Verizon or AT or Sprint.
Apparently there is a TWiT app headed to Windows Phone 7. There's a nice little demo video up on YouTube if you look for it. That we'll have a link in the show notes for it as well. And TNT is featured quite nicely in the demo. Aw, that's very nice of you. Thank you, Dimitri. On to Yahoo News. Yahoo came out today, had a press announcement, little press event, and said, please pay attention to us. We're doing things. We're going to do them faster. First of all, they said we're going to roll out product revisions faster than we used to. There's going to be a new Yahoo Mail experience, new Yahoo Search experience, Twitter integration on Yahoo, Yahoo app for iPad, customized content ads with creative formats for advertisers, and new widgets for their connected TV partners.
Okay, this is all a good step in the right direction. And quick disclaimer, I have worked for Yahoo. I will work for Yahoo again. But at the same time, I have to give them, come on, Yahoo. You just got an iPad app. Now, the one cool thing in it, it has an alarm clock feature that's pretty neat, which basically turns your iPad into a chumby with Yahoo content. So I can get that. But I just feel like, okay, they are rolling it out. It's starting to come. But this is late to the party.
Yeah, I like the VentureBeat headline. Yahoo unveils 3-year plan to become cool again. Because that's essentially what they need to do. And Nate and I were arguing about whether they've ever been cool.
Well, we weren't arguing as such as I said, were they cool at one point? And you said yes in 1993.
Yeah.
And I said, that's almost 2 decades ago. It doesn't count.
When I was in grad school, they were talking about those guys that were doing that directory of web content. Yeah, I think it's Jerry Yang. It's really cool.
I mean, they're not AOL. Let's not, completely pile on. And I'm actually also a customer. I use their, small business mail service and hosting. And I think they have a lot to offer consumers who don't want to identify or feel burdened by super geekiness. But cool.
Yeah.
Now, what they are really making a play for is being an original content provider. I mean, Yahoo is the biggest news site on the internet because they put those news headlines into their email client.
Well, they go back and forth on that. They came out big to be content, then they backed off and said, no, we're not content, we're just an aggregator. Well, maybe we're going to do a little content. So they've got pick a side. They've got to pick a direction there.
Well, post Terry Semel, they had a backlash, but they're definitely moving more in the content direction right now. I can tell you they've recruited a ton of mainstream news personnel who have come out to Santa Monica and are really banging out, especially video. That's where they're really pushing. So listen, Yahoo is here to stay. They're moving in the right direction. Carol Bart says, hey, we can't come in here and sprinkle fairy dust and just make it happen.
Yeah, fairy dust.
Yeah. I personally love following fake Carol Bartz on Twitter, so I can strongly recommend that.
One thing Yahoo does provide is competition for other services like them. That's something Facebook is slowly losing. MySpace is still around. Friendster, for goodness sake, is still around. But Facebook is pretty dominant, which led to the development of Diaspora. If you don't remember, these guys created an open source project, put it up on Kickstarter, said, if you give us the money, we'll build it. Got $200,000 or more from donations, and they have published the source code today.
And your guess? Anyone going to use it?
Well, they've got to develop it, right? This is just publishing the source code. It says, okay, everybody make it. The key is, are the developers going to get involved and start building it out?
But that's the question. Why would they bother if they don't think anybody's going to use it? I mean, is this Orkut? Is this where is it going? I'm going to take the position of wah, wah. Anyone choose to be rah rah?
I want to know how they're going to get people to leave Facebook. The whole reason so many people are on Facebook is because so many people are on Facebook. I mean, it is, they have some problems, but I don't know how I would sell this to the guy on the street. Say, hey, leave Facebook for this. I mean, I suppose you could say join it as well, but...
Well, it's way too early for that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even a service yet. But the idea is to say your privacy is protected here in ways that Facebook won't, because it's a distributed service instead of having a central server. But you were saying the developers are not keen on what they've published today.
I've read on some sites that developers just aren't massively happy with the types of technology that they're using and the way they're licensing it with HEPL. There's just a few things kicking around that people aren't necessarily, developers aren't necessarily as on board as they probably should be.
Well, that'll kill it in the cradle.
Yeah,
if they don't get the developers on board.
But I just wonder, with it being open source, is this going to make it actually easier for people to exploit, because they can see the loopholes for exploiting user data? That's one thing Facebook doesn't do quite as well. It's more down to user, ignorance of not hiding their personal data.
Right. Well, though there are good arguments to be made that open source is always going to be more secure because you got more people looking for holes to plug, and Facebook is well known for having a lot of malware drifting about in its system. So.
Ken in the chat room makes an excellent point about the name choice as well. He says Diaspora sounds like a respiratory problem.
Yeah, and that's a project name. They could always change that later, and that may be a good advice there.
Is there any way that can I ask one quick question? Is there any way that they could hook into the Facebook services and create like a barrier, a privacy barrier, so that you have connection to your Facebook friends, but you have a barrier of holding your own information in a private service?
I don't think so, because when you share information with Facebook, Facebook has all the information and it shares it with its connections. So you can't say, I'm going to keep my information on this side and share it with Facebook. It works the other way in the API. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I can't see a simple way to do that.
Stephen 3X in the chat room was saying that it hasn't hurt Mozilla basically being open source, but Mozilla isn't, and Firefox isn't storing massive amounts of hugely personal information to be exploited in the same way. It has search history, if you like, and things, but it's not the same level of personal info.
Well, that is one thing that the Diaspora could have an advantage on, though, is that you're distributed. Anybody can run a Diaspora server, so you can run it yourself. And lock it down yourself. It wouldn't be someone breaks into Facebook and gets access to the entire database of all the users. It compartmentalizes things, so that could help too.
Yeah, and you know what? And I think that sort of touches on the key point of this, is that you could basically have these as niche social networks.
Yes.
Loads of them.
Yeah.
Very, very small and very, very, focused on certain areas. A bit like Ning does, I guess, with the sort of messaging.
Or used to before they started charging.
Before they started charging.
And everyone left.
That left you out in the cold, didn't it?
Yeah, we jumped it on Sword Laser. Yeah.
So it could be stepping up to fill that gap that Ning left.
ABC TV's My Generation Sync iPad app will display polls, trivia, and other content timed to the television show. So while you're watching, it uses the iPad mic to pick up the sound, identify where you are in the show, and put up relevant content because there's a watermark embedded in the audio of the broadcast that triggers the content.
Yeah, disclaimer again. Apparently, this is a show about all my various and sundry employers. Tell you, I'm all over the point. All over the place. This is really interesting to me because we've been having these internal discussions at ABC News about whether iPad apps and mobile apps that are used while watching the big screen are really best suited for getting more information about what you're watching at the time, or if what we actually are doing as people is we're watching sort of passively and then we're doing our email or doing our Facebook. We don't want more information on the story, maybe once in a blue moon, but I kind of feel like this is I vote for the fact that we're actually multitasking. The only thing I could see being kind of something that works in tandem would be if you had some sort of a, I don't know, like a Farmville for news or something like that that went at the same time. But I don't really see us seeking more information from the small screen, the iPad or the phone. What do you guys think?
Oh, I remember Gold Pocket on the old X-Play on the old Tech TV back in the 2004. Remember that? We had people writing trivia questions, and they streamed on the television, and you played on your laptop at techtv.com.
Is this like where you can send text messages into the TV?
Well, there was that too. This was the Gold Pocket was a different take. You were actually in the browser, and it was timed to the broadcast, and you would there were leaderboards that would show up on TV based on the score of the people answering the questions. Anyway, some people liked to do this, but it never really caught fire. G4 kept doing it actually after they bought Tech TV. And I think you're right, Becky. People do use their computers and use their iPads while they're watching television, but it's because they're multitasking. They're doing something different. So you really have to have a compelling reason to say, no, put all of your attention on this thing while you've got that device in your hand. And don't do anything else except, play along. It's a very intense purpose. I'm not saying you couldn't find a reason to make people do this, but I don't think it's obvious what that reason is.
I don't want to do that. I want to be doing 3 things at least when I'm watching TV. I need to be watching TV, listening to a podcast, playing a game. I don't want to be...
I think the one thing I've heard is that people like to watch Twitter while they're watching something live. So sporting events, Grammy award shows, things like that. You go on Twitter and you make remarks. I did this a lot during the presidential elections here in the U.S. because it was really fun during the debates to see what people on Twitter were saying and how they perceived things. So I think that is an example of where you would want to focus your online behavior with what you're watching on TV. But a sitcom, I'm not so sure.
Agreed.
On to FIFA 10, which generated over $30 million in downloadable content sales for EA. That's more than they got from the discs they sold.
What kind of content are we talking about? Do you have any ideas? I mean, I have not played the FIFA 10, so elaborate, share with me. What are we talking about?
You can get new teams, you can get new uniforms, you can you can do all kinds of things that enhance the game and extend the game. And it's not just for FIFA. There's lots of games that have downloadable content. New maps for first-person shooters, for instance, is a big one. And so they're starting to look at this. Paid Content has an article that says EA is now seeking up to $70 million from FIFA downloadable content. All this without the costs associated with packaged goods. Are we going to see a world in which we pay very little for the disc instead of the $60?
Yeah, because you can't resell the DLC. So, I mean, that's a huge advantage. They can sell all this stuff and sell it to everyone again. But, I mean, I see this being exploited badly. I see a future where you get the team on the disc and you buy the ball from the web store. Yeah, that's not football. Soccer, whatever.
Or yeah, it's neither. I like it. Give away the discs.
Yeah.
Just pass them out. I've said this about for Blizzard for years. They should just like blanket whole cities with World of Warcraft discs, because they make $15 a month off the cost of the subscription to access the servers and play the game.
Well, that's different. I mean, that's subscription.
It's not downloadable
so, I mean,
content.
This
is another way of doing the same thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of money to be made in these, DLC and with in-app purchases on the iPhone. They need to release more levels for Sushi Cat actually on the iPhone. Yeah, I think this is the way it's going.
All right, let's take a moment to thank our friends at Slingbox for sponsoring today's show. Slingbox, of course, as you may have heard me mention on the show, is a way to watch your TV anywhere in the world. So if you're Nate Lanxon and you're from London and you can't access the BBC iPlayer because it says, oh, you're in the United States, you can't watch this, but you want to watch your favorite show. What's your favorite show?
Peep Show at the moment.
Peep Show. You want to watch Peep Show, the show, not just a Peep Show, but the TV series. You can have a Slingbox at home hooked up to the internet, hooked up to your television, and access it anywhere in the world that you have the internet for free. Anything that you get for paying your TV license fee, or in the United States for cable, you can get that television anywhere you go. All you got to do is go buy a Slingbox, hook it up to your internet, hook it up to your television, and then install the application on your laptop, your phone, bunch of different devices. Check it out at slingbox.com/twit, or drop into a Best Buy and have them give you a demonstration.
And if you believe that you should be able to buy your content once, pay for it once, and use it, watch it anywhere you want, then I say sling it.
Sling it! To the news fuse. A House Judiciary Subcommittee today passed the Cell Tax Fairness Act of 2009. No. House Resolution 1521 is a bipartisan bill that would ban new state or local taxes on mobile phones for the next 5 years, lowering your cell phone bill, or at least keeping it the same. Current cell phone consumers spend an average more than 15% in taxes on their wireless service. This is compared with about 7% in taxes on other taxable goods. How nice of the federal government to ban state and local taxes, but leave the door wide open for federal taxes. Good job.
Imagine that. Researcher Nicholas Z has calculated the 2 quadrillionth digit of pi, this using Yahoo's Hadoop cloud computing technology. The computation took 23 days on 1,000 computers. This is just a slice of pi, not a continuous string, but it is the farthest slice we've had yet. I am beside myself with elation.
Pie.
Go ahead.
I love pie.
Good. Justin.tv for iPhone 2.0 has been released and adds live video broadcasting, chatting, and Facebook and Twitter sharing, catching the iOS crowd up with their Android neighbors. The Android live streaming app accounts for 20% of Justin.tv's live streaming broadcasts.
More than 1 million web domains were infected with malicious code in the second quarter of 2010. That's around 1% of all active web domains. This is according to new data from anti-malware firm Dacient. The number was extrapolated from data gained through a sample scan of 1 million websites combined with customer deployments. One could presume that the solution might be to buy some anti-malware from Dacient. Just guessing there.
Nate, we have a story about a sport called football, which is not your football. It is an American game.
Gridiron.
Yes, gridiron. So bear with us. Tom will explain after the show. Verizon today said it would bring the new, faster 4G LTE wireless to 30 NFL, National Football League cities, by the end of the year. And we guess this means Green Bay is getting LTE, since there are only 32 teams and 4 of them share a metro area. Either that or Verizon thinks the Packers play in Milwaukee.
Or I guess they could have counted Oakland and San Francisco as 2 different ones.
Remind me to ask you what NFL is later. Many groups are up in arms over the sale of violent video games to minors, but the FTC has done some research and said it's relatively hard for minors to get hold of M-rated games, at least when compared to the difficulty level of buying mature-rated CDs, R-rated movie tickets, and R-rated DVDs. While they don't compare... Oh, I've scrolled too far. This is Google Docs. While they didn't compare the M-rated video game purchases to being 16 and trying to buy a 6-pack, we do think the data should at least keep the common sense media folks off the video game witch hunt for a while.
Maybe. On Monday, the head of a state-run holding company, Russian Technology State Corporation, showed off a prototype of the country's first domestically manufactured 4G smartphone. The 4G phone is expected to launch next year under the Yota brand, which already make a portable Wi-Fi egg that looks vaguely Apple-inspired in its design. You'll seek Yota.
Excited about IE9, but still running Windows XP? Wah, wah. Microsoft Senior Director of IE Business and Marketing told the Register no IE9 hardware acceleration features in the current version of IE8 or older PCs running Windows XP.
And finally, pigeons beat broadband. again. This is not the first time this race has happened, but the latest one happened in the UK. A USB-K-laden pigeon was released from a Yorkshire farm. At the same time, a 5-minute video upload was begun. An hour and a quarter later, the pigeons reached their destination in Skegness, 120 kilometers away, while only 24% of a 300-megabyte file had been uploaded.
And you know what? I preferred the original story, which was in 2009, also September, because the pigeon was called Winston.
Ah, yes.
What a brilliant name for a pigeon.
That was in South Africa, was it not?
It was in South Africa, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show that the Pigeon Net still remains your fastest option outside of Scandinavia, Japan, and Korea. On to the calendar.
Yes, the PS3 Blu-ray 3D playback. It's coming Tuesday. Yeah, on a blog, the PS3 blog, they said, we've announced that the PS3 system will be able to play back 3D content on Blu-ray 3D discs with the next system software update. That's version 3.50, slated for release on September 21st. So they said it might be here this summer, but a little late, on the cusp. It's coming Tuesday. The iPad coming to China on Friday. This is the Wi-Fi only version. It'll be for sale in their flagship stores there, and one would assume via the internets. Also coming to Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. And they say they have a bunch of other international destinations for the iPad rolling out soon. And the 3G version coming later this year. I'm not sure if it was this year or undisclosed date to China. I have another story that's kind of, Black Friday is pretty much my favorite day of the year. I love the deals. And Deal News had a great, they've done this for years where they predict what are going to be the hot deals. So Black Friday coming in about 2+ months. So here's what they're predicting. The best bang for your buck, budget 55-inch 1080p LCDs for $799. That's unbelievable.
That's believable.
I can't believe it, Tom. They say not so much movement on the 15-inch laptops, dual-core processor, 4 gigs RAM, $379. They predict netbooks will range around the low price, around $179. I think with this iPad news that we might see some real netbook prices to go like sub 100. That I would love to see. Certainly doorbusters.
I do like I should clarify. I do like a 55-inch for $700 some bucks. That's pretty good.
And the LCD too, 1080p, 240 hertz. They're estimating
240 hertz too. That's actually that's the significant one there for me because that's 3D capable. They're actually saying don't buy a 3D TV, but because they just think that the new technology is going to come out next year. No glasses, please God, please God. Blu-ray players, $45, and then they reminded me that last year Roku had an HD box for $49. That's half off just on Black Friday through their website. In fact, it crashed their website last year. So if you're thinking about a Roku, hold off until maybe midnight on Thanksgiving. I'm just saying. Not so much with the Apple deals and e-readers. They say the best deal is going to be the Kindle 2 refurbished. They're guesstimating $110. So if you're planning your Christmas shopping already, just shoot me now. Those are some of the deals to be aware of. Happy birthday to the 6502 microprocessor. It turned 35. It can now run for president. Woo! Congratulations. It was introduced in 1975 at the WestCon in San Francisco. If you don't know what the 6502 microprocessor is, look inside your Apple II, your Commodore PET, your VIC-20, and you will find one.
All those things I don't have.
Waiting for you lovingly to reboot you and start playing some Combat again or something. It's in the Atari 2600 too. Anyway, it was a revolutionary microprocessor. So thanks to Ken Shepherdson, by the way, our VP of Engineering, for passing that along to us. On to our voicemail, which is not just a voicemail, it's also a face mail because it's a video sent to us by our very own occasional co-host, Ayaz.
Oh, hi. I was watching TNT when I heard about the Microsoft Surface tablet that was going to be so thin because the Surface display was actually going to be the camera as well. Interesting idea. You know who else thought this was interesting? Apple. In fact, they thought it was so interesting that in 2004, they filed for a patent for the integrated sensing display. And they actually received the patent in 2009. And guess what? It's pretty much exactly the same. The display is the camera. So unless Microsoft has a cross-licensing patent agreement, which they might, I think I just saved them millions in attorney's fees. So long, guys.
You should send him a bill, IS. Good research there. Thanks, man.
Not only an excellent point, but by far the best video message to the show we have received. As a producer, IS, I applaud you.
Best video editing.
And Tom, you called it a face mail.
Yeah? You like that?
Sort of. Yes and no. Mostly no. Mostly. It's nice. FaceTime.
Because you see his face. On to the email. This is electronic mail. You can send it to us, tnt@twit.tv.
Allow me to read this first one here. Hey, Tom and company, just finished listening to the Wednesday TNT here in Bangkok, and the listener voicemail at the end compelled me to comment. It's exhausting to hear people, particularly Leo, keep repeating the mantra that the world contains determined pirates and honest people with nothing in between. Well, repeating this line of wishful thinking over and over again doesn't make it true, and I think it's naive to ignore human nature. How many of us can honestly say that we never used the original Napster or BitTorrent or installed a friend's copy of a program on our computers? You shouldn't need to have a degree in behavioral economics to realize that piracy is made fast, easy, and anonymous. That if piracy is made fast, easy, and anonymous, that a great number of people will participate, often justifying it as a victimless crime. Most copy protection schemes acknowledge this reality and are just trying to slow down that huge group of us in between the felons and the saints. Really thoughtful email, I think, from Roger in Bangkok.
Yeah, I like this email because it makes a fair point, but I don't think it changes the conclusion any. I think when I think we're just using shortcuts when we say, like, it only punishes honest people. So let's rephrase. Let's not say people. Let's say actions, because people. He is right. They're not 100% good or 100% bad, but the actions can be. And so if you're trying to be honest and taking an honest action, this punishes the honest actions. It doesn't punish the dishonest actions. And I think the point remains that these DRM situations really only punish you when you're trying to be honest. It doesn't punish you if you're not being honest. So it's a fair point, but I think we can still draw the same conclusion a little more carefully, thanks to Roger. On to Todd, who says, in the segment about Google firing the employee for doing creepy things, Tom indicated that this guy was a real concern as opposed to the accidental sniffing of too much packet data. A concern of privacy advocates is that while Google, the company, may have no intentions of doing anything bad with the data they accidentally collected or the gigatons of data that they intentionally collected, having it all under one roof makes it tempting for individuals at the company. The IRS has had problems in the past with employees looking up information on famous people. Google probably has way more interesting information on you than the IRS has. So another good point from Todd.
You wonder if there won't be some sort of in-house best practices that they start to implement as they realize the power of this information that they need to police from inside. Will they assign people to work in teams? Will they create overseers who audit randomly any inquiries into personal accounts? They do have a serious responsibility. It really is, to those who are given much is expected here. So I think it's a really good point.
All right, well, we have reached the end of the show. Nate Lanxon, thanks for coming all this way up here, all this way from the UK even.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Let people know where they can find your work.
Okay, so you can find my work at wired.co.uk, which is the site I edit. And you can also follow me on Twitter, which is .com/Nate Lanxon.
That's NATELANXON.
Yep.
Thank you, Becky. I'll see you again on Tuesday.
Sounds good, bud.
All right, you can email us, tnt@twit.tv. Give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW. It doesn't have to be a face mail. It could be a voicemail. Just leave us one there. And you can also find us on the web at twit.tv/TNT for all the episodes and links to the show notes. We'll see you tomorrow.